I've spent more nights on the road than I can count, but there are a few that haunt me every time I close my eyes. Trucking isn't just a job, it's a lifestyle, one that puts you face to face with the strangest corners of America. You see things out here that you can't explain, and sometimes you wish you never saw them at all. I've been driving rigs for almost 15 years when this happened. It was the spring of 2017. And I was hauling a load of appliances from California to Arizona, cutting through the Mojave Desert in the dead of night. The darkness out there is different, thicker, heavier, like it's pressing in on you from all sides. My headlights were dim, and I kept telling myself I'd get them fixed, but money was tight and time was tighter. I was debating whether to pull over and wait for sunrise, but I needed the cash, so I kept going. The road was empty, just a straight line through endless black. I was maybe an hour from the state line when I saw something up ahead, fast, low, and out of place. I hit the brakes, heart pounding, thinking it was an animal. But as I got closer, I realized it was a car, dead center on the double yellow, hazards blinking in the dark. The passenger door was wide open. I stopped just short of hitting it, adrenaline spiking. I'm not the type to scare easy, but something about that scene made my skin crawl. Still, I figured someone might need help, so I pulled over and got out. The desert air warm and still. The only sound was the tick of the hazards, echoing across the empty highway. I circled the car, a new red Ford, spotless except for the dust. The inside was empty, no driver, no passenger, not even a bag or a phone. I checked the back seat, the floor, everywhere someone could hide. Nothing. That's when the silence started to feel wrong, like the world was holding its breath. I glanced over my shoulder, half expecting someone to rush me from the dark, but there was nothing, just the endless desert and my own heartbeat thudding in my ears. I should have left right then, but curiosity got the better of me. I checked the ignition. The key was still there. Engine off. I tried the trunk, but it was locked tight. I grabbed the key and popped it, but the lid wouldn't budge. It was jammed, like something was wedged inside. I opened the back seat and reached through, finally managing to pop the trunk from the inside. 3 garbage bags, tied tight, and a length of rope holding the lid shut. I was just about to reach for one when the night exploded with the sound of a gunshot. I slammed my head on the roof of the car, pure panic flooding my veins. For a split second, I couldn't move, couldn't even breathe. The gunshot echoed across the desert, bouncing off the empty highway and dying somewhere in the blackness. I dropped the keys on the front seat and bolted out of the car, my only thought to get back to my truck. As I scrambled up into the cab, I heard a voice, rough, angry, and getting closer. "Hey, hey." The voice was gruff, desperate, and it was coming fast. I fumbled with the ignition, cursing as the engine sputtered. My hands were shaking so bad, I almost dropped the keys. That's when I saw him, short, stocky, red hair, overalls, boots caked with dust. In one hand, he held a shovel. In the other, an old hunting rifle. We locked eyes as my truck finally roared to life. He didn't look wild or crazed, just worried, almost pleading. He dropped the shovel and started waving his hands, shouting, "Wait, wait." But there was no way I was sticking around to find out what he wanted. I threw the truck into gear and floored it, the semi lurching forward. In the rear view, I saw him sprint after me for a few seconds before turning back to his car. My heart was pounding so hard I thought it might burst. I kept glancing in the mirrors, half expecting him to come charging out of the darkness. 5 minutes later, just as I started to think I was in the clear, headlights appeared behind me, fast, too fast for that stretch of road. The car was right on my tail, horn blaring, high beams flashing. I called the police, voice shaking, trying to explain what happened. The car kept swerving, trying to force me off the road. For 15 minutes, I was locked in a nightmare chase, praying I wouldn't crash. Finally, flashing blue lights appeared up ahead. The car behind me veered off the road and disappeared into the desert. I pulled over, shaking, and waited for the officer. I told him everything, but he just took my statement and sent me on my way. They never found the guy, never called me back. To this day, I have no idea what was in those bags or what that man was really doing out there. But I've never driven through the desert at night without thinking about it. I'm not one of those truckers who films every mile for TikTok or YouTube, but I've seen enough weird stuff on the road to fill a dozen channels. I'm younger than most guys in this business, and when I started, I thought the worst thing I'd face was boredom or maybe a blown tire in the rain. I was wrong. This happened about 3 months into my first job when I was still green and eager to prove myself. I was hauling a load from southern New Jersey to Lafayette, Indiana, a 12-hour drive, and I'd already done an 8-hour run earlier that day. I was exhausted, but I wanted to make good time, so I pushed through the night, hoping to reach Lafayette before 3 a.m. Halfway through Ohio, I realized I was running on fumes. No energy drinks left. Nothing but the hum of the road and the ache in my bones. I pulled off at the first service stop I saw, but it turned out to be an abandoned gas station, the kind that looks like it's been empty for years. The only other building was a dark, repurposed convenience store. I figured I'd check it out, just in case. The door swung open into pitch blackness. I stepped inside, hoping for a forgotten drink or snack, but the place was gutted, shelves gone, dust everywhere. Just as I was about to leave, I noticed a faint glow coming from a back room. Curiosity got the better of me. I crept over and found a refrigerator plugged in and humming, but when I opened it, it was completely empty, no shelves, nothing inside. As I shut the fridge, I heard a clatter from the main room. I froze, every instinct screaming at me to get out. I waited, listening, but heard nothing else. I hurried out, jogged to the next shop up the road, bought a drink, and tried to shake off the weird feeling crawling up my spine. Back at my truck, I glanced at the abandoned store one last time. The door was open again. I was sure I'd closed it. I started the engine and pulled back onto the highway, telling myself it was just my imagination. But as the caffeine kicked in and the miles rolled by, I started noticing something even stranger. The curtain behind my seat was moving, billowing as if someone was back there. Sweat prickled on my neck. I kept checking the rear view, convinced I'd see a face staring back at me. I didn't have any weapons, so I quietly punched the nearest police station into my GPS and drove, every second feeling like an hour. When I finally pulled in, I ran inside and told the cops what was going on. They surrounded my truck and opened the back. What they found still gives me nightmares. 3 homeless-looking people, 2 men and a woman, wrapped in filthy blankets. One of the men had 2 switchblades. They just stared at me as the police cuffed them, never saying a word. I don't know how they got in or what they wanted, but I'll never forget the way they looked at me, like I was the one who didn't belong. My name's Kevin, and I've been trucking for more companies than I can count. After a while, the job becomes routine. Pick up, verify, deliver, repeat. But every so often, something happens that shakes you out of that routine and reminds you just how vulnerable you really are out here. This was about 4 years ago when I was working out of North Dakota. It was a chilly Tuesday in May, and I was determined to knock out a long haul into Montana in one shot. No sleep, just grit and caffeine. I'd been on the road for hours. The world outside my windshield, nothing but endless, empty highway and the black outline of woods on either side. I was fighting to stay awake, using smelling salts my buddy Tristan had given me. They burned my nose, but they worked, at least for a while. It was past midnight when I started to lose the battle with exhaustion. My truck drifted onto the shoulder, jolting me awake. I slowed down, desperate for a place to pull over. But there was nothing, just trees and darkness. That's when I saw it. A purple dress lying in the middle of the road. I blinked, thinking I was hallucinating, but it was real. As I rolled past, I saw a pair of shoes a couple hundred yards ahead. My nerves were shot, and I started praying for a safe place to stop. Then I saw more clothing, kids' clothes, scattered in a pile by the roadside. That's when the panic set in. I stopped the truck, heart pounding, and stepped out to investigate. The air was cold, biting through my jacket, but it helped clear my head. I approached the pile, every instinct screaming that something was wrong. The clothes were definitely for kids, boys and girls, all sizes. I scanned the woods, but the darkness was impenetrable. Suddenly, I heard a crunch to my left. I spun around, searching for the source, but saw nothing. 30 seconds later, another crunch, this time from the opposite side of the road. My survival instincts kicked in. I sprinted back to the truck, slamming the door just as a child's scream rang out from the woods. I froze, torn between terror and the urge to help. Another scream, almost identical, echoed through the trees. Without thinking, I fired up the engine and pointed my headlights toward the sound. In the beam, I saw 3 or 4 people ducking behind trees, one of them holding a massive speaker. They were trying to lure me into the woods with fake screams. Before I could react, something thudded against the side of my truck. I saw a figure on the other side of the road, shouting and throwing something that cracked my passenger window. I floored it, driving the last hour in silence, too shaken to process what had happened. I called the police when I finally stopped, but I never heard back. To this day, I don't know what those people wanted or what would have happened if I'd gone into the woods. All I know is that I've never stopped for anything on a dark highway since. Not for a dress, not for a scream, not for anything. If you've made it this far, you probably understand why truckers have a reputation for being tough and why so many of us keep our stories to ourselves. Out here, the road is long, the nights are endless, and sometimes the only thing between you and the unknown is a locked cab door and a little bit of luck. I've seen things I can't explain, heard voices that still echo in my dreams, and learned the hard way that not every cry for help is what it seems. Maybe you're listening to this on a late night drive, or maybe you're just curious about what really happens out there on America's highways. Either way, remember this: trust your instincts, keep your doors locked, and never ignore that feeling in your gut when something just doesn't add up. The world is full of strange places and stranger people, and sometimes the scariest things are the ones that look the most ordinary. If you've got a story of your own, something you saw on the road, something you can't explain, drop it in the comments. I read every single one, and who knows? Maybe your story will be the next one I share. Don't forget to subscribe for more true horror from the highways, the back roads, and the places most people never see. Until next time, keep your eyes on the road and your wits about you. You never know what's waiting just beyond the headlights.